Monsters 2020, you wanted the best, you got the best, the hottest talk show in the morning. Anywhere in the country, it's the Monsters in the Morning on Real Radio 104.1. We have our special guest who has been a special guest a lot in 2020. Not that I don't love talking to him, for God's sakes, but Dwight Bain, who's a nationally recognized crisis counselor. And, I'm watching the news last night, Dwight, and I'm like, yeah, it'd probably be a good time to talk to Dwight. Now that there are over 100 cities are protesting, we've got riots in the street, the possibility of military getting involved. We got coronavirus, by the way, still happening, and then to make it even better, it's the start of hurricane season. I mean, and I see a story here, Dwight, as I woke up this morning. It says that now that there's a shortage on antidepressants like Zoloft in the U.S. because so many people started taking it to combat what was going on with the pandemic for depression and anxiety. You being a crisis counselor, I mean, obviously you probably have you seen a lot of that?
Yeah, it's think of the perfect storm, right? We're in hurricane season starting yesterday. The perfect storm in hurricane season, it's got massive winds, it's got, storm surge, it's got spin-off tornadoes. Well, right now we've got COVID. We've got certainly the issues with racism, but you missed one, Rush. You missed the recession. 400,000 people in Central Florida still don't have jobs because the theme parks are still closed. And then you have all the issues with the lockdown, the shutdown, having to work from home, having to homeschool the kids from home, not being able to see aging parents, something that I go through of missing my dad every week. So you add all of those things up, and this is really important, and it will explain what's happening not just in 100 cities, what's happening in every city. When people go through this type of intensity, and we've never lived through something like this before, this is the longest disaster in the history of the United States, and it's still an active disaster. It's still going to go on for a period of time. 2/3 of people will push it inside, and they become very anxious, very depressed. Yesterday, the Center for Disease Control released their data showing that the people that are the deepest affected mentally by this corona crisis that we are going through are the young, women, people of color. And they're the ones that feel the intensity the most. Now remember, 2 out of 3 will push it inside. It'll go to anxiety, stress, sleep loss, depression, and sadly for some people, self-destructive behavior like drugs, alcohol, even suicide. But when you look at, what about that 1/3? Russ, 1/3, and this will explain the last 2 or 3 days, 1/3 go to rage. They don't just go to anger, they go to rage. Now here's an important principle for all of us. COVID did not cause all of these problems. COVID exposed. Racism's always been there. Sexism, Angelique, you know this, has always been there. When we look at people in bad relationships, locked up now on week 10 of this shutdown, if you were in a bad relationship when this started, you're in a very bad, maybe even abusive, dangerous relationship right now. Crisis exposes what was already there, but this is our hope. It opens up some conversations, and that's what I hope we do today.
Well, and that's also been said about our economic problems, exposed because of COVID. And, a lot of us are watching the news, Dwight, and I think a lot of people think COVID's done. The news cycle has changed. So a lot of people, I mean, would you not agree? A lot of people may be thinking that, listen, that's a thing of the past.
Yeah, that's a really important point. I'm glad you said that because COVID, listen to me, COVID has not gone away. They've just got enough room in the emergency rooms for you. There's enough ventilators. That's why the lockdown has stopped. The disease is still just like it was. Yeah. But for some people, and it's a good point, Russ, the news cycle will go on for a period of time, and then people say, I've heard that, I want to hear something new, right? But the disease is still there. Recession is still there. If I can't pay my bills, waiting on a stimulus check or waiting on unemployment isn't cutting it. If I'm dealing with some relationship problems or maybe issues that have been there for a very long time. When we started this lockdown, a lot of people said, you know what, I'm going to get organized and I'm going to change my career because about 6 out of 10 people go to a job they don't like, but it pays the bills. Jobs are about income. A career is about your identity. A career is something that you feel like you were born to do. And we're going to see a lot of people reinventing during this time. But remember, 2/3 will push it down and it will hurt them. It really won't hurt other people as much. 1/3 will blow up in rage. It will hurt other people. But for both, the solution is the same. Now, this is really important. I want everybody to think about the word common, not the rapper. He's pretty cool. I've actually had a chance to see him in person. But when you look at the word common and then you look at the word community, it's the same root word. When you look at the word common, and you look at the word communication, it's the same root word. When we can get people talking in common about our pain, our problems, when we can get people in common starting to talk about hurt and injustice, do you feel like that you've been treated badly? And getting them talking because I'm listening. When that happens, something powerful happens. Because now we have an opportunity for them to, instead of push it down and hurt them or explode and hurt other people, talking about these common themes of hurt, pain, fear, OMG, what are we going to do in the future? If we can get people talking through it and I can just stop and listen, some powerful healing can happen, because now I don't need to blow up on somebody. I don't need to blow up on me. Now we can start to heal.
Dwight, do you think the protests are important?
I think the protests are essential. And remember, Will Smith tweeted this on Sunday. The problems of racism have always been there. Or look at the other isms. You know, when we look at sexism, ageism, many of my friends have been downsized, really laid off, because they're over the age of 60, and those companies may not call them back. So an ism represents an injustice.
Right.
And so a protest is an injustice. It must be solved by open communication. Now, here's the difference, Russ. You know, we've got COVID. Remember, COVID just is like an exponent in math. It multiplies. It expands what's already there. And so COVID has taken people who see the injustice of violence toward those that are in a defenseless position or people of color. And so the injustice is being exposed. For me to go to violence about this person's injustice, two wrongs don't make a right, something that my grandma used to tell me. It still works. Because if I do something, you know, if I go loot because you're doing something to a person in a city that I've never met, I haven't made either of our situations any better. I've created a new problem. And sometimes people say, well, why would these looters, why would these young people in particular do that? It's the same reason, Russ. Why would a young person, and right now we're seeing suicide rates higher than we've ever seen in the history of our country. Why would a young person say, I'm just going to give up on my life? Well, the same reason that another young person says, I'm going to go blow up my life. It's the same root issue. There's pressure, and for some, they blow out and they hurt other people, or they go to violence. It doesn't solve their problem. Or for the people who push it down, they go towards self-destructive behavior, gambling addiction, porn addiction, alcohol addiction, prescription drug addiction, huge problem. It doesn't solve their problem. They're trying to cover a problem. And the way we solve the problem is what we're doing right now, is to sit down and start a conversation, to get a legal pad, piece of paper, and to say, help me understand the pain you're going through. That's how we can start to unravel it.
On the line with us right now, Dwight Bain, who's a nationally recognized crisis counselor and a great friend of mine, by the way. So the news overnight saying there's a shortage of antidepressants like Zoloft because so many people started taking to combat the pandemic, depression, and anxiety. So if you were, I don't know about this, and I'm sure you do. If you were taking an antidepressant, Zoloft, and all of a sudden you can't get it, what happens, and how do you? What do you do about that? If we have listeners that are like, oh man, I was taking this Zoloft, now I can't get it. How do you combat that? What do you do, Dwight?
That's a really important question, because it's a life, maybe threatening question. When you run out of an antidepressant, they're called SSRIs. When you run out of one of these type of medications, you don't just stop taking it, because it can, for some people, push their body into a deep self-destructive pattern. Oof. So the first thing you do is you reach out to your doctor, you reach out to your pharmacist and say, hey, I've only got 2 days left, because the pharmacies all cooperate with each other. There is a way for you to get the medication that you're on. You never stop taking a medication without your doctor's approval. However, if you're in that situation, you say, Dwight, Russ, Carlos, Angelique, Angel, I've been off of this for a week. All right, take a breath. I still want you to call your doctor. I still want you to talk to your pharmacist. There are things they can provide to you medically as far as medical options, physical. But remember, right now with the coronavirus and the COVID crisis that we are going through, that's a physical medical problem. What happens to all of us, not most of us right now, Russ, all of us are affected psychologically. The coronavirus will infect a tiny percentage of people, will be infected. All of us have been affected. All of us are impacted either financially, we're impacted in our relationships, we're impacted because of the fears about the future. We're working for a company, and we used to have health insurance so we could go see our counselor, and now my company has downsized, or for many companies, Russ, they're already in bankruptcy. What do I do if my company's in bankruptcy and that's where I got my health insurance? Well, now I don't have health insurance.
Right.
And what you do is you start conversations. There's a famous, probably the most famous therapy center in the 1980s. And you guys are going to be surprised, and the listeners are going to be surprised. The place where more people got therapy in the 1980s than any place else. You guys know the name of it?
Church?
Well, good guess. It starts with a C. Let me give you a hint. Because sometimes you want to go to a place where everybody knows your name and everybody's problems are the same. And everybody's glad you came, because sometimes you want to go to a place where everybody knows your name.
Right? I was going to say that, which was weird. That was going to be my answer.
Cheers?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, Cheers, the place I've never been to. I hear it's a lot smaller than the one in the TV show. But the concept is it. The concept of, there's Norm at the end of the bar and we just sit over a beer and we start to talk, or in my case, we grab a cup of coffee at a coffee shop, Foxtail Coffee or Axum, and we say, what's going on in your life? Well, here's what's going on in my life. And here's something that's powerful that happens. Remember, you don't have to have health insurance to get wise counsel, but you do have to talk. If you talk through it, you get through it. And it's going with somebody that you trust, starting a conversation, and being able to say, tell me what's going on in your life. I'll tell you what's going on in my life. And what happens is we figure out, regardless of our age, our gender, regardless of our color, regardless of our financial situation, pretty soon we all have very similar problems. And when we can have those common problems in a conversation, remember, communication comes from the root of common. Everybody listening right now, Russ, me too, has some type of pain or hurt in their life, some type of injustice that's happened to them or happened to somebody that they love. When we can open up those conversations, and for some people it's around a water cooler, other people it'll be after work today, and maybe for some people, and I hope for many people, I hope it's right now, and I'll say, you know what? Let's start some common communication. Maybe it's on a Facebook chat. Maybe it's in a conversation. Maybe they'll call in. Maybe they'll type in a question. But when we start to unpack that pain, it solves a very real physical problem in our life. There's an ancient Jewish proverb that said, when I kept silent, my bones wasted away. And psychologically, that's true. When you hold all of the pain inside, for 2 out of 3 people, it will go into anxiety, depression, deep hurt, loss, loneliness, and for some self-destructive behavior. 1/3 will say, I'm just going to blow up. Hey, boss, take this job and shove it. I ain't working here no more. And they just blow up a relationship, or they blow up on their kids, and then they feel stupid. I can't believe I called my kid that. But your child will always remember what you called them. The pressure has to come out in a safe way, and we do that by starting those conversations.
Hey, Dwight, so we keep hearing people say, well, we're all in this together, but I think different people have different struggles and different problems. And with what you're saying and with depression, are there certain signs that maybe we should look for to take care of our good buddy who we think is so strong, or our mom seems to be fine? Or are there certain signs that, because this is a more unique situation than I've ever had in my lifetime, and I think in your lifetime, are there certain signs that we might want to look for that someone might be struggling with depression more than we ever would have thought they would?
That's a great question, and also, Russ, it's a life-saving question, because if the person that you know and love has always been a little bit moody, but now they're very quiet. On this one, in large part, silence is what you're watching for. You're watching for somebody who's extremely immobile. They can't even get up and take a shower. They just don't have the energy to be able to eat, to brush their teeth. And so what happens is, think of somebody who's drowning and they just keep sinking lower and lower and lower. And there is a place to say, hey, friend, you know what? You dropped off the grid. You're not returning my calls. I'm going to come and I'm going to physical distance, but I'm going to come and I'm going to knock on the door. We're going to have a conversation. Sunshine is very healing. And sometimes to say, let's just go outside, sit on the back porch in the sunshine. Or if you can, let's go for a walk. There are ways to practice CDC-approved physical distancing for psychological healing. But the warning signs are really going to be silence and somebody who just is just seeping into that deeper, deeper darkness. Now, for the 1/3 who blow up, you don't have to look for warning signs of are they silent. You have to look for how many things they've broken. Oh, look, they broke the big screen TV. They broke my iPad. They broke this, because their rage is coming out. Right. There's a safe psychological way to do that. But I'm telling you, if people don't open up these conversations, some will go blow up their life. I mean, they will go quit their job, quit their marriage. They'll punch a hole in the wall. And up in the villages, the levels of domestic violence and violence in homes, these are retirees.
Really?
It's higher than it's ever been recorded, because 1 out of 3 will go to physical violence or some type of expressing violence. They will break things. And some of the stories I've heard, I mean, little grandmas who are throwing things, who are throwing weapons, throwing a pipe wrench at their husband's head. And you think, this is crazy. Exactly. COVID crazy. You've heard of pregnancy brain? This is COVID brain. The prefrontal cortex, this section right here in our brain, is where we do our clear thinking. And when you and I are absolutely on overload, that part shuts down fight or flight, fight or run away. And for the people that fight, they're going to do some very aggressive things. Yesterday, one of the news stories was that 2 licensed attorneys, bar-approved attorneys, were throwing, literal, weapons at police officers, throwing rocks, Molotov cocktails. You will lose your bar license if you commit a criminal act. And these young people will give up their jobs. Now, I can tell you in a year, they'll say, that was not my best idea, because I went to law school. I still got $100,000 worth of law school debt, but I got stirred up by the crowd, and that's herd mentality. Not everybody 10 weeks ago needed to buy up 1,000 rolls of toilet paper unless they eat at Taco Bell a whole lot more than they should, if you know what I'm saying, right?
Yeah.
Being able to know that the herd mentality intensifies what's already there. And for about 1 out of 3, it's going to go toward violence that they will regret. 2 out of 3, it's going to go towards self-aggressive behavior, self-destructive behavior that they will regret. The solution for both is the same. COVID crazy is solved by common conversations just like this one.
You brought up herd mentality, Dwight, and for anybody going out to protest, explain how dangerous herd mentality can actually be
be aware of it, yeah,
and to be aware of it, even in a peaceful protest, and what to look out for, and why a couple bad apples can ruin the bunch.
Well, and that's a great question, because a couple of bad apples always ruin the bunch. Because you could be in a situation saying, I got my sign, hashtag Black Lives Matter, hashtag injustice, hashtag speak up now. But, go back in time a couple of years after the Pulse massacre, after a terrorist destroyed Pulse and took away 49 lives and then permanently injured and changed our entire community. Our community came together. We became Orlando united. United around what? United around love and peace and gentleness and kindness. And so what I want people to do, herd mentality will take over that part of your brain. Again, 10 weeks ago, you may have thought we have plenty of toilet paper and paper towels, but all of a sudden you saw people buying up everything, and so you just started snatching. That it will take over your brain. So what I want you to do is I want you to be on the perimeters. Don't be in the middle. This is not mosh pit time. You want to be on the outside perimeter, because if you're in the mosh pit, you're going to get hurt. Because if you're right up in the front where the cameras are, that's where the most aggressive people. And remember, when that part of your brain stops working, you go to fight or flight. You will go to pure survival mode, like you are dying, like you are drowning. You're going to be on the outside perimeter because you want to make a statement. This is the time to speak out about injustice. This is the time to open up and talk about injustice in a lot of ways. Obviously, racial injustice. But I'm telling you, there's financial injustice in our country. There are people that are working 3 part-time jobs trying to make rent because their rent keeps going up, and they're just buried. I want people talking about the financial piece. I want people talking about the relationship piece. There are single parents who struggle and are in pain in this community. There are little kids that watch their parents go to war with each other, and the little kids aren't even going to have lunch today because summer is here and the lunch program is gone. If it weren't for the Christian Service Center, I don't know who would feed them lunch during the summertime. We have to talk about what's happening in our community. We have to watch Anderson Cooper and to be able to see, here's somebody that I've never heard of. I did that, yesterday. My son said, here's somebody that you've never heard of, but you need to hear his point of view. In the field of psychology, we study what's called EQ, emotional intelligence. It's really building empathy. And so herd mentality will take over your brain. If you're on the outside perimeter, you can start to feel pain without being drawn into somebody else's pain. That's going to protect you. It's going to let your voice be heard without it causing long-term negative consequences. Because if you say certain things on Facebook, say certain things on Instagram, about your boss, about the mayor, if you say something about some political figure, that lives forever on social media, and that could infect your future employment. I want people thinking before acting, and you can keep your mind clear for thinking if you stay a little bit away from the intensity. That way you're doing the thinking and not the crowd. Does that make sense?
Totally.
Yes, it does. Dwight Bain, you are a brilliant man. Love you like a brother, man. Thank you for taking time to talk to us today. A lot of people are texting. They appreciate your words. Hopefully, it'll help heal. And thank you so much, Dwight. We appreciate it, buddy.
Thank you so much.
All right, buddy. You take care. All right. When we come back, I think Savannah's going to be on the phone with us. Don't go anywhere. You're listening.